guys, welcome back to my channel. So today we're doing something a little different. I'm starting a new series where we are going to look at some of the most unhinged TV show episodes out there. And starting off strong, we have to go with one of my favorite shows of all time. It's the Canadian coming of age show, Degrassi. Now, I'm sure you guys have probably heard about this, but it's essentially a show about a group of middle schoolers who then go into high school. And they go to a school named Degrassi, and literally every bad thing that could possibly happen at one school happens at Degrassi. So yeah, I thought we would explore some of the episodes. Today we are exploring the first episode of Degrassi: The Next Generation. Now, this episode literally starts off with such a bang. I was honestly shocked to see that this was the first episode. I haven't seen this in a very long time. I haven't seen it since I was like 8 or 9. I don't know why I was watching Degrassi at the age. Ask my parents that question. But yeah, this is the episode where 12-year-old Emma's life turns into an episode of To Catch a Predator. So let's get right into it. So this episode also has another plot point which shows the parents going to their like school reunion, which I don't think anyone cares about that. Like, that's not the exciting part of Degrassi. I think that's one of the things I hate most about Degrassi is that there's so many storylines about the parents. And like, I don't really care about the parents. So we're just gonna focus on Emma's story today. We're starting off the series by meeting Emma, who is a 12-year-old girl who is going into the 7th grade and starting at a new school, which is Degrassi. And we find out that she's been emailing this 16-year-old environmental activist named Jordan, which already red flags because meeting people off the internet is never really that great of an idea, especially when you're a 12-year-old girl. But yeah, she meets this guy named Jordan and they're chatting on the internet. Emma thinks that she's in love because he's so dreamy and oh, he loves plants like I do. That's like literally Emma's whole character is being a hippie. So she is just so excited. They have so many of the same interests. Fortunately, I can relate to this because I was like the queen of Omegle when I was 13. I was always talking to random people on the internet. Luckily though, I never met up with anybody because I like to just troll people on Omegle when I was that age. I wasn't like trying to find love. So yeah, I wasn't doing any of the stuff that Emma was doing per se, but I was still getting up to some nonsense on the internet. But also, can we talk about the fact that she's using an email platform called Treemail? I don't even know what that is. I don't know if that's a real thing, but if it is, like, what type of people use Treemail? That's ridiculous. That's a really silly email platform. It just reminds me of like Yahoo, but for tree huggers. I don't know. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love trees. I sound like such a hippie hater in this video. I'm not. I love the environment. Disclaimer before I get canceled, I love the environment. So don't hate on me. Okay. So she ends up just emailing back and forth with Jordan for a bit at the first part of the episode. And then we're moving on to Manny, which is her best friend, and Emma go to drop off some boxes for the school reunion. And they are looking around the school. Emma's going on and on about all this poetic stuff that Jordan has said inside his emails. And oh, he's so sweet and mature and he loves all the same things as me, and she's going on and on about how much like she's in love with him. And then we move on and we meet JT, which is one of their friends and one of the recurring characters on Degrassi, and he is wearing the worst hat ever. I hate fedoras like that. I think that they're stupid. But yeah, we meet him while he's wearing a terrible hat. And then we meet his friend Toby, and they start to do this weird camp jingle handshake thing, and it's really annoying, but those are just 12-year-old boys for you, so they're doing all that. And then Emma and Manny sneak into the computer lab. Remember when like computer labs were really, really big, like back in the day, and they were exciting? And now, as a teacher, I literally see so many kids just break out their MacBooks. I swear to God, like every kid has a MacBook these days. I literally would have sold my soul for a MacBook when I was a child, but I digress. While they're in the computer lab, Emma sees that Jordan has sent her a new email, and he's very excited because he says he's going on a school trip to Toronto and they're going to be at a hotel room. And he's like, let's meet up. And she's like, oh my God, yay. Like, I should totally meet up with him, right? And Manny gives this look to the camera, which I think is the most relatable reaction to this sort of thing. Because I think if my friend would have told me that they were meeting up with some dude at a hotel room, I would have had the same reaction. I mean, let's think about it. Emma's 12. Jordan is 16. Even if Jordan wasn't secretly a catfish, Jordan is still 16 years old. That's like still way too old for Emma. So I would be like, I don't think you should go to this anyways. Like, nothing good comes from a high schooler being with a middle schooler. This is when we move on to a scene where JT and Toby and Emma and Manny are like squirting water guns at each other on a playground, and Emma's talking about the fact that Jordan wants to meet, and of course JT is over here with some banger lines, and he says like, you know, this dude's probably 40 and he probably drools and he probably lives in his mom's basement, like you don't really want to meet this guy. And then Toby starts pointing out like, you haven't even seen this guy, how can you trust this guy? And then Emma's like, well, he sent me a picture, so clearly that means that he's exactly who he says he is, which this is the type of logic that people on the TV show Catfish use. If you guys have ever seen that show, like, the people on there are either so stupid or they're just like astronomically delusional, because just because someone sends you a picture on the internet does not mean that they didn't just Google that picture 5 minutes ago and say, oh, there's a hot chick on there, let me just send it to this dude and like scam him out of all his money. Like, it is so easy to do that. I feel like Emma's not thinking straight in this moment, but she's also 12, so we should give her a break. And then in the next scene, we see that Emma's mom is on her computer, but of course, like, Emma's mom is meant to be like old in her eyes, so Emma's mom doesn't know how to work a computer. She doesn't know how to work an email or hack into Emma's email. Her mom just kind of teases her about having a boyfriend, and then Emma like comes out with a super crazy line, and she's just like, well, I'm not having sex, mom. Which I don't even think her mom was really thinking that, but it's funny that Emma's like so blunt and to the point in the scene. And then we move forward, and Manny just really doesn't think that Emma should meet this guy, and she's telling her, you know, it's probably dangerous, but Manny's still trying to be supportive, and she's just kind of saying like, maybe you should be careful. And then we see in the next scene that Emma's mom's friend, Caitlin, she's talking to Emma, and Emma's like, well, none of my friends like my boyfriend. And Caitlin, not knowing the situation at all, is thinking that like Emma's just talking to someone she knows in real life. So she gives her the awful advice of, well, who cares what your friends think? Just go for it. So this is the start of where the episode begins to get very, very creepy. And now we jump forward to the night of the meeting, and Emma lies to Manny and says she's gonna watch some boring ass nature documentary, so Manny shouldn't even bother coming over, it's fine. Emma's not gonna meet him as she's painting her nails and making herself look all good for her man's Jordan. And then we jump forward to Emma is going to the hotel room. Now, this is where it truly becomes a creepy ass episode. This is where it becomes total To Catch a Predator vibes. And honestly, this episode gets kind of dark. Like, pretty dark for a kid's show. Now we see Emma arriving at the hotel. She ends up taking a taxi there, which like, I don't even think I would have known how to take a taxi at the age of 12. But she's wearing her best fit. She's got on her dolphin pants, and these pants I still think about to this day. I honestly would love a pair of these pants. And she has her makeup all done, you know, she's ready to meet him, and she's just sitting in the lobby waiting for him. And then we jump back to Manny, and Manny goes to JT and Toby's house, and she's talking to him, and she's like, hey guys, I think that Emma met up with this weirdo, like, what are we gonna do about it? They don't know where she went, so Toby, being the G that he is, apparently he's some like super hacker guy, the computer man. JT ends up saying like, oh, we can't hack into an email, and Toby's like, yeah, we can. And so that's their plan for saving Emma. Then we jump right back to Emma at the hotel, and this guy shows up, this middle-aged man, and he's claiming to be Jordan's teacher and saying like, oh, are you Emma? And of course he's acting like so naive and so innocent, and he's like, I'm his teacher, like they're just upstairs, like we could go up to the hotel room and meet. And I think if I was in Emma's situation, this is where I would like leave the hotel. I'd be like, who are you? Like, I'm not going up to a hotel room with this grown ass man. And now we jump back to Toby trying to hack into Emma's email. And can we just talk about Emma's username? This is literally my favorite username I've ever seen. It's called Sparkle Spaz. That's gonna be my new band name. But Toby is trying to guess Emma's password, and Emma's password ends up being her mom's favorite band. So Toby's like, this was really, really easy to hack into her email. And he starts to suspect that Jordan has been going into Emma's email and pretty much reading everything that Emma sends, which is horrifying. So he gets a bunch of intel about Emma and essentially uses all her interests and turns them into his own interest. So that's pretty creepy. Now we're jumping back to Emma inside the hotel, and the teacher guy ends up taking her to the room. And of course, this gets so creepy. He's like, Emma's unlocking the door for him, and then he like looks around like to make sure that nobody in the hotel sees his pedo self trying to get into this hotel room with a 12-year-old. So then they go into the hotel room, and of course he's like lying once again, and he's like, oh hey, and he like knocks on the other, like the adjoining room, and he's knocking on it, and he's like, oh hey guys, pizza's here. Like, you would know if a group of 16-year-old boys was in the adjacent room, because you would be hearing so much nonsense. Like, teenage boys are so loud that Emma would be able to hear them. But Emma like sits down on the chair, and the teacher's like creepily eating pizza, and he's just like, so Emma, I hear you're into hiking. Like, I like hiking too. And Emma starts to realize like, oh shit, this guy is Jordan. Like, this guy, there's no Jordan that actually exists. There's no 16-year-old boy for her to meet. So she essentially lies and says that her bag is down in the lobby, and she's like, okay, I'm just gonna go get my bag real quick. And of course he pulls up the bag and he's like, Emma, your bag's right here. And then Emma just absolutely fumbles unlocking this hotel door, which I don't know why this was so difficult. I guess because she was nervous. But she ends up locking herself in the bathroom, and I don't even know this guy's name, so I'm just gonna call him Creeper. So Creeper's like knocking on the door, and he's like, Emma, like, I'm sorry if you're uncomfortable, but I'll just go down to the lobby and I'll leave, and you can leave if you want, and you know, I'll just sit here and wait in the lobby, and if you want to come talk, then we could come talk. And this is where he pulls out the super creeper mode, and he was already in this mode, but he pulls this little trick out where he opens the door and then closes it, but obviously he's still standing there, and so Emma thinks that he's left, but he didn't leave. Then we cut back, and Toby is reading through her email still, and he sees the name of the hotel room, so he's like, okay guys, like, we gotta go save her from this kidnapper guy. And so they start running to the parents, and they tell Emma's mom. They're all like screaming at the same time, and they're like, Emma's in trouble, Emma's in trouble. So Emma's mom and Snake, who is her buddy, go to the hotel. And now Emma is trapped with Chester the molester, and they're just kind of standing there, and he's like, this is where his mask starts to go, and he starts acting like really, really scary, and he pretty much shows his true self. He's not trying to be polite at this point. And this is where we see that he has set up a camera. And this is the creepiest shot ever, you guys. Like, the way the camera is set up to show like Emma and him sitting on the bed. Ew. It's literally so disgusting to me. But Emma and him are just sitting next to each other, and she's very uncomfortable. She's like fidgeting with her hands, and he literally starts to sniff her hair. Yeah, the sniffing noises, this episode, it is so silent that you could just hear his sniffs. I don't like that part at all. I don't like any of it really, but he starts to sniff her hair and he says, "You smell so sweet." And then he says, I'm sorry, I shouldn't be laughing, but it's so uncomfortable. But then he says, like, "I've been dreaming about this for a while." And this is where she's like internally losing it. And then we start to see Snake and Emma's mom like running down the halls, and they're like banging on the door and they're like, Emma, open up, sweetie." And I'm like, bitch, you think she hasn't tried opening the door at this point? Like, she has tried so many times with that door. I'm convinced that door's broken. But yeah, then Emma pulls out some Olympic style gymnast moves and she does like a backflip off the bed, and suddenly the door just miraculously opens way easier than it was able to the entire time. So I guess the door finally got fixed. And then this is where my favorite part of the whole episode comes in. This is when Snake literally like grabs this guy, and Snake is huge. Snake is like 6'5", and he's like holding him and he's like, "Don't move or I'm gonna break your neck," like a WWE star. And yeah, that's pretty much where the super creepy part ends. Now we're jumping forward and Emma's computer is being taken away, probably by the FBI, and they say like, "Oh, this guy's been a repeat offender, but don't worry, he's gonna go away for a long time." And this is where it could easily transition into an SVU episode, but unfortunately we don't get much more than that. The episode just ends with Emma and her mom hugging it out. Emma's kind of mean in this part, but understandable for a 12-year-old who's very traumatized. But she's like saying like, "Don't you ever make mistakes? Didn't you make a mistake?" Like having me. And that's the typical Emma response. I feel like Emma has the craziest lines ever on Degrassi. But then her mom's like, "No, sweetie, like I love you, and that's why you shouldn't have done this." And then it ends with Emma crying. And then it's literally never mentioned again. Like, her trauma is just not even there. Like, they just don't talk about this moment, which this would be highly traumatic for literally anyone involved. I don't know why, like, Emma even really trusted grown men after this whole episode, but I digress. Typical Degrassi fashion to just have an episode where something crazy happens and then to just never mention it again. But let me know if you guys have seen this episode. Are you guys Degrassi fans at all? Because I'm a Degrassi super fan. I've seen every episode of every single one of the Degrassis. I've seen the 80s Degrassi, I've seen Degrassi Next Generation, I've seen New Class. I've seen every single one of them like probably 5 different times because I'm crazy like that. So let me know in the comments if you guys have any recommendations for really crazy TV episodes. Doesn't matter what type of TV show, I'll watch literally everything. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm going to try to start posting videos every single week. That's my goal. So if you guys want more content, make sure to subscribe or have the post notifications on. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this episode of Degrassi with me. Bye guys.